2. How you doing, Jason?
Hold on. Yeah. Doing okay.
That's good. Okay. Well, we're just going to be using this time to shoot the shit. It's not long enough for a full recording. It's also not short enough for us just to sit around and just wait because we just ordered food. But food's gonna take about
you're
half an
actually
hour.
recording. I just noticed that. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that's why I was trying to lead in.
Okay, so my bad. Okay.
No, I mean, keep doing what you're doing. We're just having this recording going down, so that's whilst we wait for our food to deliver, at least we can just catch up, chill,
And we may or may not release this, right? Depending.
depending on what happens, right?
Yeah. Wait, how long? How long before the food arrives?
It'll be about half an hour. That's a good like quick recording. I mean, it says half an hour. It could be an hour, depending on. I mean, do you ever trust delivery times?
Never.
Every single time it gets closer and closer delivery.
You add
It's like
50%.
yeah, it's
time.
like okay, it's gonna be here in at like 10:45. Okay, no, it's gonna be there at 10:50. Then 10:55, and then every time you chase up customer service, it's like, oh, we adjust the time based on availability of riders, traffic situations, how long it takes restaurants to prepare stuff, and then after a few minutes, like, yeah, actually, sorry, no, it's gonna be late. Here's a couple dollars of refund, and here's a coupon so that you can put it towards another order in the future, but you have to spend money to use it. So
Yeah, well, that's the way it goes. That's how the cookie crumbles.
yeah. So one thing that I think on our on the ride over to the studio before we started recording, one of the things that Jason had brought up and I actually thought was pretty interesting was just I guess talking about like the state of manga and anime series and whether things being generic is a good or a bad thing.
Oh, I was about to say the latter half. Yes, we did talk about the first half. I was like, what? Really? We talked about that?
About fried chicken being delivered and then waiting for it to get delivered. Now, I mean, we spitball. We just say whatever's on our mind. But I kind of wanted to touch on it because when we were discussing it, I kept saying, oh, like that's just how things are. That's just the way the market looks, and that's how people just want to consume, their media. Like if it's something that they're used to and they like, they don't necessarily need deviation from the original source. And that too much change can really rock the boat. But there must be a point where we keep on watching and reading the same things over and over and over. Like there has to be a point where you just sit back and you think, you know what, like I can't consume any more of this stuff. I want something different. I want something new. Right? Like when we talk about other forms of media, like live action, like where you have reduxes and remakes of all these Disney properties, old books and old stories being like revitalized, brought back and all that. Even like with anime and manga, like seeing like old properties get brought back after 10, 20 years. Like, do you feel that now that we're reaching a point where it's plateaued in anime or just media originality and we're just consuming the same stuff but packaged differently?
So when it comes to originality, there is two comments that I would like to say. The first is when you say originality, right? The definition of originality actually is a lot harder to define nowadays than it was before. I mean, originality means something that's original, hasn't been done before. But as time literally progresses, more ideas are being used for TV shows, anime, manga, and if you also take into account current trends of that era, like for example, like the isekai trend now, and then or like the villainous trend, and then the villainous isekai trend, so it's just like there is like that well of actually full-fledged 100% pure original ideas is gonna get smaller and smaller as time progresses. So you have no choice but to make it so that it is slightly generic. And also, as you said, when we were on our way over here, generic doesn't necessarily mean bad because there is association. There is, for example, we mentioned Jujutsu Kaisen. And look, we love Jujutsu Kaisen. We think it's a great show. I can't speak for the manga because I didn't read it, but because I'm mainly waiting for the anime
Speaking
adaptation.
of which, I remember like before when the anime released, the manga rating on my anime list was like a high 7, like 7.9, 7.8.
Yeah, and then manga sales jumped like 500% or something like that.
You seen the ratings for Jujutsu Kaisen now?
No.
On Mal. I'll pull it up whilst you discuss. Like I agree. It's something we both agreed. Where like just because something is the same or like as like the same roots as other things that precede it, that's not a bad thing, right?
Right. So for the other example that I mentioned to Will is like I read a lot of shoujo and yuri stuff, but in those, in terms of generic or predictability, there's tons of that. Oh, the good girl with the bad boy, but the bad boy actually has a kind heart, and the girl actually needs to stand up for herself, and actually she's very passive, but actually she has a fire inside her. And then with Yuri stuff, it's like, oh, two girls can't be together, blah, blah, blah. What is this feeling that I have every time I see her? My heart beats faster. And I'm just like, dude, we all know. And it's just that, it's like that checklist. But ever so slightly, if you change a little bit, like going back to Jujutsu Kaisen, if you compare it to Naruto, it's basically the same thing. In fact, that's one of our friends says, oh, instead of 9 tails, it is
The Sukuna fingers.
Sukuna fingers. Oh, instead of the tails, it's fingers this time. Oh,
and it's like when you collect every single tail, you then get the mythical 10 tails. This one is connecting the 10 like Sukuna fingers.
Hey, there is a trio. Okay, 2 girls and a guy. That's the same thing in Naruto and Jujutsu Kaisen. Okay. In my opinion, Jujutsu Kaisen does the 3 way better. But hey, that's still there. The girl is not useless, so that's different in Jujutsu Kaisen.
Would you say that Yuji Itadori, the MC, would you say his color is like orange or brown?
I mean, isn't his hair like
it's that spiky-ish kind of hair that Naruto has, right? There's and then you have like Goto Sensei, which is essentially like Kakashi Sensei.
Exactly. I mean, the fact that he covers his eyes, like, come on.
Even when you see the similarities, though, like you can't help but still appreciate, like,
yeah,
this is fucking great
because the animation is good. Because instead of being more shonen in like the typical sense, it's a bit more dark and gritty, or there's just some brutal aspect to it in violence. But then if you say that like, oh, it's like Tokyo Ghoul, then it's I mean, at the same time, it's like a mixture of things, right? But maybe instead of originality, as what you said earlier, in terms of having an actual original idea, I think what's more applicable nowadays in terms of the definition of originality is the original combination of things put together in the pot to make whatever piece of work that you're doing. Because the amount of actually original stuff is getting smaller and smaller every day.
Yeah. Actually, so like whilst we were talking about that, I did bring up the numbers for Jujutsu Kaisen. The anime, the manga is 8.55 now. The anime is 8.74. So
I mean, it's very deserving of that score. At least the anime, the manga, I can't say, but it's got to be good.
It's good. No, but the next thing I wanted to bring up was the fact that the ratings for the Jujutsu Kaisen anime have superseded the ratings for Demon Slayer. Yeah. And not to mention before when we were talking about manga sales too, the trajectory of the manga having sold 15 chapters and beyond was actually getting to the point where it was like higher than like One Piece, was higher than it was higher than Berserk, it was higher than all like the big name manga series that we know of.
So Anime News Network, which is the site that we usually get most of our news, on May 30th, 2021, one of the news articles was Jujutsu Kaisen's manga circulation jumps 590% to 50 million copies since anime's debut. And then they have the breakdown of every single volume. And they said that the volume 16, which is the newest one, will have 2 million already at that point. So, and then when you factor in that, okay, there's going to be the movie that's coming out, Jujutsu Kaisen 0, the prequel, and then there's definitely going to be a season 2. It's just that momentum and that wave. And that is exactly the same thing that happened to Demon Slayer. Do I think Demon Slayer is a bad show? Absolutely not. Do I think it is an exceptional show? Not really either. But it is very well produced. The aesthetics are very pretty. They have characters that are memorable, namely Nezuko, which like the whole like internet is going crazy over. There is that element, like power element kind of ranking with the demons and stuff like that. It's very easy to digest or comprehend, but yet you add a bit of flair, such as the mangaka making the villains a bit more sympathetic, or at least have backstory, or just having the characters be in bad shape after like major battles. Like they don't come out like fully unscathed. I think those things, those little tweaks, is what makes it more relevant and more better in general
Yeah.
than Naruto or Bleach.
Yeah. I mean, even then, like if you were to talk about Naruto and Bleach back then, like that was like there's a reason why they were the big three, right? Like back there wasn't that much more manga to choose from, that much more anime to choose from.
Really,
but
I would argue there was a lot more now, like way more now. In fact,
no, I'm talking about then.
oh yeah, there like
That's why it's like as much as you can see the faults in Naruto and Bleach, like that at the time was trend setting, right? Like that's just how things work. Like when there isn't much of a thing in the beginning, and then you start seeing things develop, and then you get more and more people following it. Then like the trend is set. Now it's different. Now the landscape is it's a lot harder to crack into. But if you do have a gem, then it's like you're far and few, like you're way above everyone else.
right.
I mean, like for example, like you talked about like the manga sales for Jujutsu Kaisen after its debut, right? Like the anime debut. So like in the first half of this year, they actually sold like over 23 million copies of manga. So they're the second best selling. Can you guess which one's the highest selling one?
No,
It's Demon Slayer,
right.
right? But
You know, when I said no, I know exactly what you're saying. I was just
no,
like,
you didn't. Then why didn't you answer it then?
because it's stupid.
Trying to be smart?
'Cause
Well,
everyone-
that was dumb.
Okay, sorry.
But
Jesus.
there's a difference though. There's a difference now is that like they only outsold Jujutsu Kaisen by 3 million copies.
Right. Okay.
Demon Slayer sold over 26 million in first place. Second in Jujutsu Kaisen was 23 million. Third is Tokyo Revengers with 5 million. And then Attack on Titan 4.8 million, and Chainsaw Man 4.1 million. So the gap is just ridiculous. Like these are all good. Okay, again, we've only watched the anime for Tokyo Revengers, but we know that the manga is extremely popular. But like Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, Attack on Titan, Chainsaw Man, 3 of like the biggest properties in the last 4 years, and one which is like one of the most anticipated, most hype properties getting animated and coming out soon, right?
Being Demon Slayer,
But
right?
Yeah. But the difference between like Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen and then Attack on Titan and Chainsaw Man is just crazy. It's like it's like literal 2 universes apart.
Yeah. I mean, it's not again about quality at that point. It's about luck and opportunity, really, right? I mean, you can say the same thing about a lot of things in like.
Oh, I'm not even saying anything bad about it either. I'm literally just saying that like the numbers that these 2 properties are putting together is just
insane. Yes,
yeah,
that is true.
And now it's like we were talking about literally like when we first started doing this podcast, we were like, oh, what is the number one thing, right? That's gonna come over and take over Demon Slayer. Now it's quite clear what's taking over.
Right. Yes. I think you're a bit loud, Will.
No, I'm fine. I'm not clipping.
Oh, okay. All right. That's fine. Sorry. My
Wow.
bad.
Wow, really? You're going to
know.
be calling out like we literally use the same settings. This is what you want to do in the recording? Mm-hmm. This is how BPs work, huh? Where you just try to use this time to slate the hard work that the other person does.
No, you're just interpreting it as me being like evil to you or something.
Snarky.
There's no
Snarky,
ill will
snarky.
here. There's no ill will here, Will. It's
Spend
nothing but
spend
love.
the first 15 seconds not knowing what's going on and realizing we're doing a BP.
I did not realize.
Spontaneous, buddy.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. So I mean, now we've pretty much like, the numbers like speak for themselves now, right? Like it's very clear that if it's not replacing Demon Slayer as number one, then like there's literally like 2 number ones. Like there's like 2 people at the number 1 pedestal in Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer. But Demon Slayer, like you would figure that now with the anime like still rolling out the rest of the series, but the manga itself being done. It's only a matter of time for Jujutsu Kaisen, like where they just take over as the de facto number 1, right? I mean, they've got the Jujutsu Kaisen Zero movie coming out. They're not done yet with the manga. They're still going. I don't remember if the manga said if they've entered the final act of Jujutsu Kaisen, but I can see the manga going a lot longer, considering the amount of praise and like sales it has.
And if you consider the state of Shonen Jump, you kind of want it to drag on as long as possible. So there is, I mean, even if the quality dips, it's still going to produce numbers to a certain extent. So they're going to want to push it, especially when everything else is either ending, either move to Jump Plus, or just are kind of shit.
Yeah, and like the top five I mentioned just now, right? Like Demon Slayer, Jujutsu Kaisen, Tokyo Revengers, Attack on Titan, and Chainsaw Man. Three of them are Shonen Jump, right? But then two of them are done, and Demon Slayer and Chainsaw Man. Now Chainsaw Man, who knows when the manga when the anime comes out, it might have the same effect, right? Like the debuts, it's crazy. I mean, we looked at the previews, the trailers, and they look fantastic. So it might just have the same effect. Go in, all of a sudden, 500% increase in manga sales, and then they're selling like 15 to 20 million a year. That could happen. That could totally happen. But again, it's also like you said, right? Like, who knows? Who knows what will happen? Maybe Mappa has been so busy with a lot of the work they've been doing. I mean, they've been working on so much stuff in the past 2 years that maybe they dropped the ball with Chainsaw Man and it doesn't do as well.
I don't think they will drop the ball
No,
on it. It's too important of a
They know what they
property.
have, yeah.
So if anything, they might forego other like quality dips in other series in order to compensate for Chainsaw Man, because I think Chainsaw Man has to be good. If not, then it's not only a huge wasted opportunity, but it's going to disappoint everyone, including Mappa themselves. So, yeah. But I just feel that when you say, like, what comes next, right? We literally do not know. I mean, obviously we don't know because it hasn't happened yet, but I was thinking actually back to, like, the trends of, like, let's say the last 10 years, especially because some of the animes that we have watched has been done in the early 2000s. And I just realized that things like, oh, isekai wasn't really a thing. Oh, like, being, like, transported in a video game to, like, being transported in real life to a video game, it's not really a thing. What trend is going to happen? You never know. Because when you asked me, like, oh, back in, like, the 1990s, it was, like, Gundam. It was the mechas. Everything needed to have a mecha or a Sentai. Like, everyone needed Power Rangers or that equivalent. And then there was, like, the trend of edgy stuff, too. So then I'm curious to see where it goes from here because, as we have said many times before, the number of anime watchers and manga readers is increasing at a rate that is, it's not just like a normal growth, like it's quite high. And the fact that we are, of a certain age and still are surrounded by people who watch anime and manga. Granted, we're in Asia, but it's just it's going to become commonplace. And when things become commonplace, going back to what we were saying earlier about generic, those things will start to become more accepted, as in people would like more generic stuff because that's the stuff that they like. Yeah. That's the stuff that they got into.
But there is, of course, a shelf life to it, too, right? Like, you can be really down for a certain genre or a certain theme for a couple of years, and then afterwards it gets tiring.
Yeah, I mean, other than, like, certain, like, isekais, like, I'm thinking, like, Konosuba maybe and a couple others, all the other isekais I know by name, and I've watched a lot of them, but they're super forgettable.
I mean, there was also the period where, like, people started talking about, like I'd say at the beginning of the 2010s when you had, like, the premiere of The Walking Dead and then all the zombie movies that came out of it. We're talking, like, just general media in general. And then, like, after a while, it got kind of boring. Nothing's really all that interesting now because we're just seeing the same character tropes, same themes, same progressions. Got kind of boring. And then there was a dip in zombie movies and zombie TV shows. Then all of a sudden, Kingdom comes along and just fucking, like, wrecks the fucking Netflix market. Everybody's into it. I think it's literally, like, you need to have, like, time to step away from something and then come back. It's you need to have that rest period. Now, like, all of a sudden you have shows like on Netflix like Alice in Borderland and Squid Game. All of a sudden now Death Battle games are back in it.
So just for context, Kingdom is that
oh yeah, specifically for this context,
yes.
Yeah, it's the Korean live action time-based zombie TV show that's airing, that has 2 seasons and a movie on Netflix. I'm not talking about the Kodansha
Exactly.
manga turned anime.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Which has
not that one. Which, by the way, is also super popular.
it's also super popular, and people say lots of good things. It's gonna be tough to get into that.
Yeah. So actually, maybe in the future we may talk a bit more about specifically the death game genre, but just to sort of go over it, I think it's kind of been the thing again, right? Like we had like Gleipnir, we had like Darwin's Game. There may have been one or two others in the past. Like, there was a few that came in manga form, and then
I think Death Battle in 5 Seconds aired last season, although I never watched a single episode. So I mean, those things will always be there, and then maybe it tapers off a bit. With live action, which you said with Squid Games and Alice in Borderlands, maybe that's relatively new.
Yeah.
And when you take into consideration things like Hunger Games or those types of shows, then maybe it's just catching up with the anime trend of death games that was popular a while ago.
And then because of the fact that it's like you're watching stuff now compared to like stuff that came up before, you inadvertently would have recency bias, right? Like, let's be real. Like Alice in Borderland and Squid Game, the premise of these shows are not that different from all the death games we watched before, but because of the fact that we're watching it now, with the camera technology and like the writing skills of people after having consumed so many of these kinds of shows, these kinds of books and comics, yeah, it is going to be more popular. It's going to be better for some.
And they have perfected the formula to a certain extent, refined it such that we now have something like Jujutsu Kaisen, like My Hero Academia, which is so finely polished that it's kind of like, it's super generic in my opinion, but on the other hand, you cannot deny the fact that everything around it is so well done that it just doesn't matter at that point.
If we just like focus specifically on Jujutsu Kaisen, is there any particular character that you feel is relatively like weak or like that not as memorable?
Not as memorable.
No, yeah, like but most characters in Jujutsu Kaisen, like if I don't remember them by name, I remember them by what they do, who they are, and what their backstory is. There's so many characters in Naruto where I'm like, they really could have given this person a better backstory or given them a better plot line, so there's like more of a reason for them to exist within the Naruto universe. But Jujutsu Kaisen, like I can vibe with like 95% of the characters, and that's like you said, right? It's given the writers and the creators like more time to refine the storyline, refine these characters, so that people can enjoy them, even if it's something we've known. It's like it's packaged differently, but it's better. It is better. Like I like just because it's way more than Naruto, but like, I'd be lying if I don't see the similarities between the two shows.
Yeah,
but like, would you agree that like there's less of an issue with like how you feel about characters in Jujutsu Kaisen compared to Naruto or Bleach or any of the shonens from like 10, 20 years ago?
To me, when you look at the difference between the mentalities of the Naruto characters and the state of the same for Jujutsu Kaisen, what I realized is that Jujutsu Kaisen's characters, even though there should be roughly around the same age, are more, how should I say, intelligent and more mature. That's not to say to insult viewers or readers who like Naruto, no. But to me, when I think back to Naruto, granted, I haven't watched it or read it in so long, but I always think about people acting out, people like crying, people like being extremely emotionally charged. Whereas, of course, they still have those moments in Jujutsu Kaisen, but I always think of badass intelligence, maturity, talking about like life or death situations. Like if you think about it in Naruto, right? When the things that actually happen during the course of the story is actually quite crazy. But when I read it, it comes off as a bit more playful rather than serious. Whereas in Jujutsu Kaisen, right off the bat, it's like, dude, this is fucked up. This is serious. Like, people die. But of course, people die in Naruto too. But it's just the tone, the vibe is very different.
It definitely feels a lot more refined in Jujutsu Kaisen. But right, like there's been many years of all this content that comes out, that it's easier for people to reference the material and then be able to improve the state of their works, and so then like it reflects it.
And I also think that nowadays having it be more grim and dark and quote unquote mature is more heavily sought after than the wide-eyed, dream-like journey of a hero.
Right. Like, I mean, like, if we talk about, like, One Piece, Bleach, Naruto, it outside of, like, major character plots and, like, deaths and, like, it does take them quite a while to kill off certain characters, but, like, Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer, like, they're so happy just like, oh, you see this person? They're gonna die in an episode or two. It's just, that's just a change. People are happy to have that kind of change because they don't want you to get too much attachment to the characters. They want you to get attached to the story,
Right.
and like that's just, I think, how Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer are now more appreciated. Right, the characters themselves are strong because of the fact that so much fucked up shit's been happening around them that it furthers their specific character developments rather than you feel like mildly attached to 50 different characters in Naruto, in Bleach.
And I think in general, the amount of cast of characters, what we call ensemble cast, is a lot fewer. Because whenever I think of animes nowadays, or even manga, I don't think of the One Piece. Okay, shonens are actually quite unique in that sense because they have, in my opinion, the highest proportion of large cast of characters, but like Black Clover and so on and so forth. But in general, when you look at everything else, the amount of characters that are involved in the storyline are actually like maybe definitely less than 10 and maybe more than 3. And then, or like when we look at staff list, they literally list just like not a lot of characters. Whereas if you watch like Naruto or watch Bleach, the list of staff credits, like voice acting, is like ginormous. And I think because you have less characters to interact and deal with, you therefore have more time to focus on each of them. Therefore, then you would theoretically be more invested in each of them. And also that means that you technically cannot kill all of them so easily because then you're out of characters. So I think the priority nowadays has shifted a lot compared to what we were when we were kids growing up. So I think it's very reflective of the times now.
Yeah, but bottom line is, like, generic in this sense is not a bad thing.
Absolutely not.
It just gives creators more time to refine and to flesh out certain things that they want to focus on in a story. You know, right? If it's a specific character, if it's a specific plot, the end goal, or there might be other things they want to work on and showcase to listeners, to watchers, and to readers.
So when people when you or I say to someone like, "Oh, the story is very generic," at least when it comes to anime and manga, what that means to me now is not that's bad or that's good.
It means it'll be easy for you to get connected with because you're used to it.
Exactly. My next question would then be, then what is the non-generic part? What's the hook?
What's the quirk?
What's always the hook? What is the unique part? Oh, it's an isekai, but like, what's the hook? She's a villain from a otome game. Oh, that's the hook. Okay, I get it.
Like, it's like, for example, like with music, right? Like when you have the same, because music theory itself is not that like different for like certain like pop or like EDM kind of tracks. They all kind of follow a similar chord progression, but like you said, like what's the drop? What's the hook? What's the making thing that sets them
apart? Drop? Nice.
Yeah, there's certain things that are different that just because you might have heard one thing, it doesn't mean that you're not going to enjoy it the second time. You might know what to expect, and then that, like you said, that hook comes in, and then it changes your perspective. Your perspective. It changes your perception of what you're consuming. So, look, bottom line is that generic isn't always bad. It's not always good, but it really does depend on what you choose to do with the generic source material. And I think that's the doorbell. So I think the food's here. We're going to cut this off right here. We'll catch you guys very, very soon.
Hello, everybody. This is Jason again from the Good Anime Pal podcast. Will and I forgot to do the music credits. So our intro music is Creamer by Timothy Infinite. Our outro music is Bam Bam by Yomodi. All music used is courtesy of Epidemic Sound. That is www.epidemicsound.com. If you're interested in using their services, here's a referral link that is provided in the show description. Other than that, that's it. If you have any questions or concerns, just text us, email us, tweet us, and we'll be in touch, guys. Peace out.